We're supposed to be here earlier. Maybe Alan knows.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 12th session of the Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners meeting. The board actually opened its meeting tonight at 5:30. It was in executive session. I would ask that all folks in the room and in the hall mute, vibrate, or turn your phones off as not to be disruptive of the meeting. And if there are people in the hall, if you're not going to be quiet during the proceedings, we'll close the doors. You have to be quiet even if you're in the hall, or we'll need to close the doors so that we can conduct business. Mrs. Winslow, announcements.
Mr. Chairman, the first thing that we'd like to do is have a moment of silence in honor of Doug Westgate, a long-time service to his Conservation Commission. I believe it was 35 or 36 years, somebody estimated. So if we could start with that, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely. And also, we send our thoughts and prayers to Chief Stanley and his dad and his two sisters. Rich lost his mom yesterday morning at 4:30. The town will be sending him something to the family on behalf of the town. So please keep Chief Stanley and his family in your prayers and thoughts as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple brief announcements. The Volunteer Appreciation Dinner will be held next Tuesday night at Bessie Park. No? The 19th?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Weather permitting.
Weather permitting. And that begins at
6 p.m.
6 p.m. Thank you, Mrs. Begley. Opening day for the gateman is this Friday. You can arrive anywhere between 6 and 6:15 to enjoy the ceremonies. The game starts at 7. And if you'll all indulge me, my daughter is watching tonight. I just want to congratulate her on her perfect report card we got today. Thank you, Savannah.
Outstanding.
Mr. Teitelbaum, any announcements?
No, I have none. Thank you.
Mr. Slavin?
I just have one. Ooh, not bad today. The Swan Festival and the Wareham Historical Antiques Fair is combining this year on July 4th, and we've added another little piece to it. There'll be a Main Street car show as well. Hope you all come and attend. Thank you.
Mr. Holmes, any announcements?
Yeah, I would like to announce that on this past Saturday, some of you who enjoy the Facebook social networking pages view Mrs. Winslow's page, or my page, I think. I'm not sure how to do that. I learned how to tag, but we have pictures of Mrs. Winslow's daughter throwing the ball and Mrs. Winslow getting dunked. I will say that I got dunked a lot more than she did, and by a lot of little people who went up and ran and pushed that button when I was sitting there. I'm not sure who guided them to do that. But as you all saw, most of you who view the Wareham Week saw the pictures of the 24-hour baseball-a-thon, and it was quite a success. So congratulations to the Little League on a successful day and fundraiser.
Well, and for those of you who would like to see pictures of Mr. Chairman in the dunk tank getting dunked, you can certainly feel free to visit my Facebook page.
Okay.
He was dunked many, many times.
Is Mr. Sullivan out there somewhere?
Yes.
Where is he?
He's in the hall somewhere.
Derek?
Mrs. Begley, do you have any announcements?
I don't.
Is Mr. Sullivan out there? Could you ask him to come in here, please?
Mr. Sullivan, we're going to nominate you for the dunk tank next year.
Derek?
I think he's trying.
Tell him he doesn't have a choice. There you go. Citizens' participation. Mrs. Rose, right on up.
My name is Deborah Jean Rose, and I am a 65-year-old permanent resident living at 10 Juniper Street. I am very disappointed with the people responsible for the town of Wareham and its citizens. I am unable to obtain senior housing in Wareham and being forced to look outside Wareham, towns, and or cities that care for their senior citizens regardless of their assets and or income. I have been a permanent resident for 45 years and a seasonal resident for 21 years. My family has owned property in Wareham since 1945. I consider Wareham my hometown and want to continue to do so, and also continue to volunteer for the town and Minot Forest School. If I do not obtain housing in Wareham in the not-too-distant future, I will be unable to do this. Thank you for listening to me.
Mrs. Rose.
It's Miss Rose.
Miss Rose. So I apologize. We have received your emails.
Well, I don't get any response from all of you.
Oh, well, we have received your emails, and it's an issue that we're going to talk about here in a brief moment with the Westfield issue, and it's not as easy as we have affordable senior housing.
I didn't say
we are-
affordable. I said senior housing for people with income above the levels that are out there now, and also have assets that put them this much over.
Right. So we are working on things, and we're doing our
I don't
best to
believe
try
it. I
to
don't
try to
believe
get it done for you.
I don't believe it.
Okay. Well, it's
and
okay
I'm
if you
very
do.
disappointed about this whole thing.
Right.
And I know
can
other
un-
people in town that have the same situation.
and I understand what you're saying.
I mean, I have an application into Buzzards Bay over there at Bourne Oaks.
You
And
told me
that's
that.
based on income, not based, your rent is based on your income. I
Right.
tried Marion, and Marion is the same as Wareham. You have limits.
Right.
And if my father were alive, he would be very disappointed too. He served many years on the fire department in this town. And my mother served many years on the Board of Health in this town. And I served on it until I was kicked off.
Thank you. Sir? Oh, sure.
Thank you. Would you like one?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Next. Sir.
Good evening. I'm sorry, good evening. Frank Heath, Precinct 2. As you're pretty much aware, this is a pretty important agenda tonight. Not only do we have a large audience that's here that's overflow, we also have two committees that are also in session because of the importance of the meeting, and there's not enough room for them to be seated either. So I would respectfully submit to you that you move this meeting as you have previously moved other meetings that had heavy overflows. I understand there's reluctance because we might lose the cameras, but right now you're losing two committees and you're losing a large number of voters who have taken the time and the effort to come. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Ma'am?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? You got to speak right into that.
No, very happy, but
There you go.
I'm going to tell you, my name is Rosario Lovera. I live in 3DJ Lane. About 8 years ago, I was here 4 weeks ago, okay? And nothing be done. But I'm going to tell you very short story. About 8 years ago, they decided to change Tedeschi from one side to another side. That place is residential. It's not a commercial. Then got a special permit. I don't mind. I don't mind that they put Tedeschi over there. In the meantime, when they were doing the work, I was back and forth to Spain because my mother was very sick. So I would not be able to assist the meeting because if I was there, Tedeschi will not be there today. Anyway, then put the microphone right in front of my front window. I
Dunkin'
asked-
Donuts.
Huh?
Dunkin' Donuts.
I
Yes,
asked
ma'am.
you guys 4 weeks ago to remove the speaker. Last week, I was in vacation. It's not right for me to be up 5 o'clock in the morning. This Sunday, I was ready to kill somebody. I was. 5 o'clock in the morning and Sunday morning, I had to be inside my house, windows shut, music up, so I don't have to listen to them. I please ask to you to remove the speaker. I don't want to do it myself, because if I do it myself, I'm going to go to jail. I don't want to do that.
You're not going to go to jail,
Okay,
ma'am.
please remove the speaker. I went to the town hall. I assisted a lot of meetings. I went to the police. Nothing is be done. And I'm going to do what I have to do. I had it. I pay my taxes. I lived there for 27 years. You no need to for that. I want the speaker out, completely out. They only care about making money. When then we talk to them, then say, oh, don't you worry, we will take care of you guys. I had to fight for them to put a fence up. I had to fight with them to put some street up. It's all I can hear. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Would you
Yeah.
your phone number that I can call you at tomorrow? Mr. Foster, is saying, you give me a number to call you at tomorrow. Let me talk to Mr. Foster. Let's look into that. Yeah, he was with you last time. Okay, yeah. And there was an issue with the lights as well. Understood. Right. But don't do it till you hear from me.
Okay.
Because I don't want to have to go bail you out of jail.
I know.
Okay.
I know. Thank you.
Okay.
3 DJ.
So, Tedeschi's.
I don't care about the noise, I don't care about the doctor. You don't want to have a speaker in front of your bedroom. Okay?
Thank you.
Next, anyone else? Ma'am?
Sandy Slavin, I'll be quick.
Mrs. Slavin?
Sunday, from 12 to 4 at the Volk School. The first event for the Cape Cod Canal Centennial Celebration is being held from 12 to 4. It will be a car show with a plaque. Please come join us. As
Where is it again?
the Volk School, the Cape Cod Vocational School off of the Bourne Rotary. Come join us. It's the first event for the Centennial. Number 2, Historical Society, Monday, 7 o'clock at 495 Main Street. Michael Congus is going to do a program on the Coast Guard's most daring rescue. In 1952, 2 boats broke apart off Cape Cod. The Coast Guard rescued 70 people, and they lost 14. But as he says here, I enjoy doing these programs because I like to transport the audience into the heart of the storm, so they ask themselves, what would I have done? He's an author of many books. I expect this to be a delightful program, well worth your time to come out. 7 o'clock, 495 Main Street, Historical Society. And last thing, if you've gone through Main Street within the last 2 days, you'll notice outside of the post office, the garden club has cleaned out that area and planted a brand new garden. We are expecting the installation of a bench in memory of Rita Madden, who was a member who maintained every one of our gardens for years. So as you go to the post office on Main Street, take a look at the plantings that were donated by friends and family. Sit on the bench once it gets installed. And remember Rita and look around at the gardens that she helped maintain for the town and the garden club. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Just
you.
1 second.
What about the garden tour, Sandy?
Well, the garden tour for the garden club, the garden tour is coming up the 29th and 30th of June. I was sort of waiting for that for another meeting. But tickets can be had at the company store, Eden's in Marion, Sail Away on Main Street in Wareham, and you got to have it in Fairhaven. The tickets are $18 a piece, and we're touring 6 gardens, 3 in Onset and 3 off of Great Neck, and it's to fund the scholarship fund for the garden club. And the Historical Society and Swan Festival has already been mentioned, so I wasn't going to mention that. Anything else? Nope. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, next we have the Westfield discussion. Mr. Sullivan is here, and he would like permission to leave after this.
Permission denied. You can't leave until we discuss my letter. So if we could move that up, we can do that.
That would be a good idea. He looks tired.
Okay, we got the dates and the timeline. We emailed the board this week, right? Everybody got that? Mr. Sullivan, continue.
We checked with the Inspector General's office to make sure that with the procurement process we are doing everything properly. To follow that, we will also, in a local newspaper or in a newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, run at least 1 ad. Right now we have a, that looks to cost us approximately about $476 for that. The dates that we have proposed right now for that are June 25th, which would be a Monday, and then Monday, July 2nd as well. So that would follow after it goes out into the Central Register, and that should still give plenty of time.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Sullivan on this? And Mr. Bowen, you've checked all this out, and we're all set to go, right?
I think I saw
You've
an earlier,
reviewed everything with
saw
them.
an earlier version of it.
Right.
Maybe I can get one more peek at what's going on.
I think the only thing we had to change was the timeline, right, and the dates.
Correct, the timeline, and we went over the 30 days. We went 40 days just to give the the max benefit of having contractors and such be able to look at it and potentially bid.
Okay. All right. Anything else on Westfield? Let me move to.
I don't.
Let me move to the letter real quick while you're still here. As you know, last week we discussed the DOR issue and the payment of the 47 and the whatever it was, 200 and change. So we've deficits spent in those accounts. The state, and the latest email was tonight, is really pushing me on this to.
They have to be quiet in the hall.
Do the to sign that letter and send it in. So I told Mr. Sullivan this afternoon that I would, in fact, sign the letter and send it in if there was a plan. If I knew what the plan was ahead of time, to pay that money back. We have to pay the money to the state. If we don't do it before, if we don't have the letter in before the end of the fiscal year, in effect, they hit us twice. So the 250 becomes 500. So, Mr. Sullivan, you sent me back an email. I'd like you to share that information with the board on what that plan was, to the options of paying that money back, please.
Okay. I wouldn't be able to give you an accurate estimate of our free cash of what that would be, because that would entail the accounting would have to go through all the account receivables, the balance sheet. Even if I'm projecting surplus in some of the departments, that doesn't mean necessarily at the end of the day that would be there. So that's the sort of the only caveat on there. However, the plan would be whatever free cash we have available, we will use that to put against this money. If there's not enough, then what you have to do is then put that against the recap there. So in other words, if there's enough free cash, we would use all the free cash to pay down the approximately $250,000. If there's not enough, we would use up the free cash, and then the rest would go against our recap. And that's really our only option that we have.
Is there any questions from the board?
None.
Mr. Titlebaum, Mr. Slavy,
No, we've gone through all of it in heavy detail.
Mrs. Begley,
No, thank you.
Mrs. Winslow.
No, Mr. Chair.
Then I would entertain a motion to allow me to sign the letter requesting that the state allow the town of Wareham to deficit spend for the reason of court judgments under, I just lost the chapter and verse.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board authorize you to sign the letter to the Department of Revenue as requested by Mr. Jared Curtis in an email dated 6/12/12 to give the town of Wareham permission to deficit spend.
Second.
I have a motion made in second. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstain? 5-0-0. Anything else before you go?
And no, sir, I do have an updated one with today's date. A little presumptuous, but I do have a letter available.
And
with
we were
that.
going to let you leave.
Just in case.
If you want to take the letter with you, go ahead. I appreciate your patience, but you understand my reasoning for being so persistent on that.
Enjoy your evening, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Chairman, we would be back up at number 6, consent agenda, authorization to sign bills and documents. We do not have any bills or documents to sign. We do have interviews to several committees. Do you want to do those now?
Yeah.
Okay. We have the Bike Path Committee. We have Lois Fountain. Is Lois Fountain? Sergeant?
Oh, hang on a second. Sure,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay.
We're going to take out of order
That would be item number 8B.
8B. Dr. Rabinovich, could you come up, please? Mr. Sweat, if he is here.
Now, Mr. Chairman, the people in the audience, including the hall, it's very difficult for us to hear up here because of the acoustics.
Again, if there's noise in the hall, I'm closing the doors, folks, so you're welcome to stay for the next. It's only going to take a few minutes, but if we can't conduct business, we will close the doors and ask you to go out into the park. Is Mr. Sweat here? I thought he was here.
Hallway.
Ah. Should have gave him a 10-minute advance notice. Good evening, Dr. Rabinovich. How are you?
Good evening.
Dr. Rabinovich has a PowerPoint in the machine. The point of tonight's bringing him out here tonight was so that I know the board is aware of the issues, and I wanted to make sure that, because this board has never sat together on this issue, to give Dr. Rabinovich both a chance to address us and for anyone to ask him any questions. And I also invited Mr. Sweat, chairman of the school committee, to do the same. So we can start with questions, Doctor, if that's okay, from the board.
That's fine.
And then if you want to briefly either do your piece or give make a statement.
We have 10 minutes.
Mr. Sweat would like to make
Oh,
an
that's
opening
fine.
statement.
Yeah, well, between the two of you. Right. Mr. Titlebaum? What? Oh,
I just wanted to make an opening statement unless you'd like to delay it. It's up to you.
well, I was just going to let the board ask the questions, and then if you want to do that first, Jeff, that's fine.
It's up
Go
to
ahead.
you, Steve.
Go ahead.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen of the Wareham Board of Selectmen. The green light. Is the green light mean it's on? Ladies and gentlemen of the Wareham Board of Selectmen, thank you for the invitation to present a request to you to schedule the special election to consider an override to Proposition 2.5 and 4 debt exclusions. As you deliberate and vote on this matter, I ask you to consider the following. The town meeting votes on the articles that cover the override and debt exclusions clearly represent a request by the legislative body of this town for such a special election. To deny such a request should require a very compelling reason. The school committee does not believe that such a reason exists. Furthermore, in recognition of the town's revenue shortfall, the school committee, in good faith, reduced its initially requested fiscal year 13 budget to a level below this year's budget and potentially below the state mandated minimum, because it believed the voters would ultimately get the opportunity to restore a portion of the cuts. Please respect that very difficult decision by giving us the chance to provide high-quality educational experience and opportunities for Wareham children. While the cost of the special election is not insignificant, it is much smaller than any of the individual requests and less than 1% of the total amount for the voters to consider. In addition, the potential impact on Wareham's public schools, if we allow class sizes to significantly rise and programs to be eliminated, fail to maintain the physical integrity of the high school building, create extraordinary maintenance costs and safety risks by not replacing some of our aging school buses, and reduce the educational experiences of our children by not providing them with required textbooks and up-to-date technology, is so great that only the voters should decide these questions. Finally, the replacement of a 50-year-old elementary school with a 60+% state subsidy must be considered by all citizens, as that burden could increase in the years to come if state funds become less available. In the end, please consider that the buck stops with the Board of Selectmen on many issues. But respectfully, I do not believe this is one of them. By law, the voters get to decide whether there is sufficient value to these investments to justify raising their taxes. Please respect their ability to make that judgment and give them the opportunity to do so. Thank you for allowing us to come before you this evening. We respect that each of you, as a citizen of Wareham, has the right to agree or disagree with these tax increases. We ask that you, as members of the Board of Selectmen, give that same right to the voters of Wareham. Our superintendent, Dr. Barry Rabinovich, now has a short presentation to highlight the details surrounding these questions that we hope you and the rest of Wareham's voters will consider. Thank you.
And I'll defer to you questions first.
I don't have any questions for the simple reason that this board and myself, before I was sworn in, were in attendance at town meeting. We heard your presentations for each of the debt exclusions and also the override article at length. I think we've been adequately informed. I understand your desire to come before the board and have one more bite at the apple here, but I think that I'm in a position to make my decision to move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Slavin.
The one question we have, which is the cost of the special election, we have the ability through the Finance Committee using their reserve funds for unexpected or type of events, which is what this is. And I believe Mr. Heath, the chairman, is here. Obviously, they haven't voted, but I believe if a request is made to the Finance Committee, to actually pay for the election so it doesn't affect our budget, that would be available to us. I just want to make everybody understand that that can happen.
Did you have a question? Mrs. Begley.
Hi, I have a question. I'm wondering how much total for the 4 debt exclusions and the override the increase would be per thousand, not per home, per thousand.
If I may put it up on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
was going to have that all set up for you, Barry, so hopefully you should just have to hit a button. Oh, there you go. So that was good. Okay. Someone in the back there, if you could find that light switch on the wall and shut that bar of lights, thank you very much.
Number 8.
Number 6, cost per thousand.
What was also number 8?
Oh, twice.
All right. This is for the actual, the override, the $780,000. It's 23 cents per thousand, or on $100,000, it's $23.
What about the rest of them?
I'm gonna do there is a chart that has the rest of them.
It's number 8.
Do you have my presentation there? Yes, okay. Tax rate increase in year 1 of 5, it actually goes down because this includes the interest, is 0.0768 cents per thousand, or 7.68 cents per 100,000.
That's for all of them.
That's
$7
all of
and-
them together.
$7.60.
I'm sorry, $7.68.
$7.68.
Per $100,000, and that's for all 4 of the debt exclusions.
Mrs. Begley?
That was
Any
it.
other questions?
Not right, not at this
Mrs.
time. Thank
Winslow?
you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just, not so much a question, but just to Mr. Sweat and Mr. Rabinovich, thank you, Dr. Rabinovich, thank you for coming. The question before us tonight is only the question of placing these questions on the ballot. And I think it's very important that people understand that we're not here to judge the right, the wrong, or the indifferent of the proposed overrides, simply to place the question on the ballot. It's a yes or no question.
That is correct. I think everybody is aware of that, I hope.
Okay. Well, we have a room full of people who are all here because they're concerned, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the board is not voting up or down on their feelings on the proposal. They're voting up or down on putting them on a ballot. Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Well, I think that's a valid point. I was listening to you there.
Oh, thank you for listening. I
Just so you
appreciate it.
know. And some would argue that that position that's one way to look at it. That whether the board agrees with these ideas, I'll call them, or not, the question this evening is whether or not the board will call for a special election and put 1 or 5 of these on a ballot. The other side of that question, I think, is that people have elections every year in Wareham, where they either replace 1 or 2 of us on any given year. And some would argue, and they have argued on the phone, that they've already done this, and that the 5 people that they put in office should be able to make this decision. And why, if it's such a difficult decision, is this going to become an issue where you get a difficult decision, a big issue, politically charged issue, that we're going to go to a ballot and ask people questions? Or do we conduct business as we conduct business at any other time, on any other issue, and make a decision as a board? So that's, I'm not debating with you on that. I'm just saying that that is some of the things that I've heard, because I've gotten a lot of calls on this, quite frankly. And most of them were not to have an election. So I'm just telling you what I understand what you're saying, but this is what people, they're calling me and say, look, we already did this once. We voted you people in office and to make these kind of decisions. So that's my comment. I would ask, though, Dr. Rabinovich, there are 5 questions here, and obviously it's not on the agenda to debate every single question. But one of the biggest questions that people ask is, of the 5, would you rank their importance, and 2, would you state your opinion as to whether this is a Band-Aid or a solution on each of the 5, if you wouldn't mind? I don't want to.
I'll give you.
I know you've given this a lot of consideration, so that should be a pretty much a softball question.
I'll give you 2 parts to that answer instead of 5. I won't rate them, but the most important part is the override, because it brings in an additional $780,000 to the town to be used each year. And in this year, it will allow me to recall 21 people who have lost their jobs, who have worked for this town for either 1 to 17 years. That money every year comes back to the town. There will some, and I know it goes to the general account, but there are many people that believe if this goes to a ballot and it passes, that $780,000 should be added to the school department each year, because that's why it was originally voted, to bring those people back. And their salaries are not going to go away once we keep them. So I don't believe it's a bandage. It is a long-term solution because the money continues to come. Now, when we look at the debt exclusions, fixing the high school roof and putting a new roof on so that our athletes and students who are running in that gym don't hurt themselves, I don't believe is a bandage. I think it's a long-term solution. Do we have other needs? Absolutely. But we determined to come forward with the one that we thought was a safety issue now. We've seen the buses. We've seen the age of the buses. Is that all we need? No, but it's a start. 4 of them, and we have other decisions that we have to make. I'm not going to get into a debate and talk about the whole transportation, but it is a start that needs to happen. No matter what we do down the road, we need to at least replace 4 of them for safety purposes. Instructional material. We took that out after talking with the finance committee and put it this way because the town did not have enough money to even level fund us. So we're $250,000 below what we were funded at last year. The minimum contribution that the state says that the town is supposed to do increased by $600,000. But we agreed with and voted with the school committee to go to the lower number because the town did not have the money, with the idea that we would then come forward with a way to find the money to buy those textbooks. And we don't have to buy them every year. Once we buy the new math series for the high school texts, we'll have them. In 5 years, will we need new math books, or maybe 6? Yes. But at least it will take care of it for that period of time. The Minot Forest feasibility study. It took us 2 years to get accepted by the Mass School Building Authority to offer us the opportunity to have this opportunity. We need to do the study in order to find out what the general cost will be to do the entire building. It is possible that we will get more than the 60%, but I don't want to tell you that we're going to get 70% and have somebody come back to me later and tell me that I promised we were going to get that amount of money. So I've given you the lowest possible number, which is 60%. The building is 50 years old. We have original heating systems, original electrical systems. We need to do the work. And whether we decide to do it now or we wait 5 years from now when the project costs more money to do, I believe this is the right time to do it. I understand economically this is not a great time to be asking for money, but it is a need that we have. So to answer your question, we need all 5.
Mr. Chairman, could I respond to your question as well?
We don't always agree.
Oh,
Neither do we.
go right ahead. That's true.
I would not describe it as a long-term solution. Technically, a capital expenditure is almost by definition a long-term solution, but fundamentally, it's not a long-term solution because the use of property taxes with an outdated and flawed state formula is the problem, and unless that is changed, many communities, not just Wareham, will find themselves in this kind of situation where taxpayers in poorer communities are unfairly burdened by the cost of education. So the short answer is no, it's not a long-term solution. The formula must be updated. The formula must be fixed. Anytime you use mathematics to divvy up finite resources, there are going to be winners and losers. Unfortunately, this formula has made Wareham a loser, and the taxpayers are the people suffering for it. But in the meantime, we have children to educate. And so it's a necessary solution, but it is not a long-term solution.
And I would agree with that. The problem, Mr. Sweat, for me is, and this goes to the question of voting yes or no, is I hear from a lot of 80-somethings who have been living here most of their lives. They own homes. They own property. Their retirement's based on earnings they made 20 years ago when they were professionals, and now they're retired. Some of them we just nailed with a $15,000 fee. Some of them are about to get nailed with somewhere between $15,000 and $22,000. And then we come along and say, okay, well, here's another $30. You know, to some of these people, $30 is a lot of money. It's the difference between when they're in the store. You understand, I've heard you say this before, I know you understand, between craft dinner and a piece of steak, or, you know, getting my pills, or paying a heat bill. $30 to some people is a lot of money today. So and they have no children in the school, right? These are older residents. And these people are calling out. Now, the political expedient way to do this is just put it on a ballot and let them say no. And then where are you going to be at? Because that's my next question. Is there a plan B to this?
The plan B is that we open up with 30 children in a classroom, that we have vehicles that will not bring the children to school, we'll have to reduce services, and you'll be getting the phone calls not from the 80 plus, you'll be getting it from the parents of the children that we're trying to educate.
Let me rephrase. It goes to a ballot and fails. What is the plan B? No, that's not what he said. He was answering a different question. Because they won't be calling me if it fails at a ballot.
We understand that. We understand there were a number of hurdles to get through. We needed first to get it on to town meeting. We needed to get it past the town meeting. We needed to come before you and have you vote to put it on. Then it's up to the voters to make a decision. And, you know, there'll be a lot of discussion in the next 35 and 40 days about what is the right thing to do, and that most of us who were educated many years before, somebody else paid for that. So now it's time for somebody else to pay to educate the next generation. With all due respect, please hold your applause. These are serious things, and we're having a discussion about to try to do what's right. And I understand it's difficult because it is a very difficult question. I understand that. So with all due respect, we're trying to have a meaningful conversation.
Mr. Holmes, there is an answer. Okay. There is a Plan B. In fact, about a week ago, we started to initiate Plan B, which was when we laid off approximately 21 people. So, of course, there is a Plan B. We have a legal responsibility to implement Plan B, and we not only have one, we have started to implement it. So, but the consequences of Plan B are very significant. But of course, we have a Plan B.
And they're also very real.
They are extremely real, and they are so real that people are losing their jobs. People are choosing, and I don't want to minimize the significance of this. People are choosing right now, as we speak. Some people are watching this hearing, this meeting, and deciding whether to keep their children in Wareham public schools. That's how real it is.
I understand that. In a ballot vote of no doesn't change that.
A ballot vote of no will unfortunately accelerate a decision that may be made even before the ballot, because you have the authority to not even put on the ballot. And as Mrs. Winslow said, that's the question for tonight.
Right.
But you asked the question, is there a Plan B? There is absolutely a Plan B, but the consequences of Plan B are very significant.
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Winslow.
if I may, please. Thank you. And I'm going to preface my comments with these comments are not to be taken in support of or not in support of the proposed overrides. They strictly relate to putting the questions on the ballot. The consequence of not putting the questions on the ballot is very significant. And the five of us right now hold a significant amount of responsibility in our hands, because we're talking about the education of over 2,000 students. I believe that every child deserves the very best education we can provide them. That doesn't mean that that education is going to be what I wish it would be, or what any of you wish it would be. If we put the question on the ballot, we're allowing the people to make a choice. We're allowing the voters to speak, and I trust the voters. They put the five of us here, and we should put our faith in them and let them do what's right for this community. And if these don't pass, then the voters know the consequences, and they understand them, and they're willing to go forward with them. I would rather allow people to speak their mind through the ballot because the law allows them to. It gives them that right. And for us to deny that, we would be making that decision on our own. And we would be implementing Plan B as of right now. And there would be no alternatives for these children. Not that there may be alternatives. There are no guarantees. These questions may not pass. People may not support them. And that could very well happen. But at least then the community made a decision, and the community can take responsibility for that decision. And those consequences are something that the community together decided that we were willing to undertake. And I hope that my colleagues will think about that as we move forward and get to these questions. Thank you. No applause. No applause.
Easy, please. Anybody else?
I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Sweat, I understand that you went to the clerk's office to see how many questions could go on the state ballot that would not cost us, we wouldn't incur the cost of a special election. Because I received an email and the response to you went to the board.
I was told initially that there might be a possibility of putting up to 3 questions on the September 15th ballot. But I was then later told by another trusted source that because it's a primary election, that's not available to us. So I don't pretend to have any expertise in this area, but I'm simply telling you what I was told.
Mr. Bowen, do you have any insight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The questions could not go on the primary ballot. the only way that they could go before the voters would be at a special election called before September 15th.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if there's no other comment or questions from the board or Mr. Sweat or Dr. Rabinovich, perhaps we should move down the list, if everybody's ready.
Rich, this is the list that you generated.
Yes, sir.
Attorney Bowen, as I make these motions, must we have a potential date for a special election, or can I simply do them as a to be determined?
The way, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, the way I drafted them was for each one to have a special election date, because I didn't know what date you were going to do or whether any or how many of these would pass. So if there is going to be some discussion about a special election date, now would probably be the time to have it before you get into the motions as they are drafted.
Mrs. Winslow, the town clerk looked at the time frames and recommended we pick July 25th as the date because of the holiday of the 4th. That will give her the proper time frame.
July 25th
Correct.
And through you, Mr. Chairman,
is a Wednesday. We can do it on a Wednesday.
It's the date she sent down.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we do this correctly and that
That's what we asked.
right.
Mr. Titlebaum?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Attorney Bowen, is this date in compliance with the general laws in terms of providing adequate notice to the voters? The July 25th date that's being discussed.
I know this is a tough issue for everybody, but just understand it's hard for us to hear up here as it is.
Okay, I'm reading from Chapter 59, Section 21C. It reads, no election at which the question appears on the ballot shall take place later than the September 15th following the date of an appropriation vote adopted at an annual town meeting, or 90 days after the date of the close of any other town meeting at which an appropriation was adopted. And so, I'm trying to remember the date the town meeting closed.
May.
Town meeting closed May 1st.
May
No.
1st.
No. The special closed on the 23rd, so it was the couple weeks prior.
Special wasn't for this.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So
26th.
No, the town meeting itself closed on May 1st. We met the last day in April and then the first day in May to close the regular spring town meeting warrant.
All right.
So that's the date we need to operate from.
That's 30, 60, by the end of July.
Tuesday, May 1st, in my book.
Okay, so if we're looking at the end of July, then I would suggest, and I'm not going to make a motion to this, just let me know if anybody objects, then I would suggest that we play it safe by going with the following week, maybe August 1st or July 31st.
It has to
Shall
be
take
within
place
90
later
days.
than
Oh, it has to be within, I thought it couldn't be within 90 days. Did I, see, can't hear up
Oh.
here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'll reread it. No election at which the question appears on the ballot shall take place later than the September 15th following the date of an appropriate vote adopted at an annual town meeting, or 90 days after the date of the close of any other town meeting at which an appropriation vote was adopted. So I would say, or 90 days after. So that would be within the 90 days.
That's correct.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, with respect, I think there's some urgency, both financial and human resource related. If the citizens see fit to pass the override, the sooner we're able to contact teachers, the sooner, the better, the more likely we are to be able to have them available to us. And the second reason is the longer we wait, the more unemployment costs we will incur. So I would encourage you to make the date as early as possible, but still within the legal confines of the law.
Mr. Sweat, teachers are paid on an annual basis. Why would we incur an unemployment cost over the summer?
Dr. Rabinovich will answer that question for you.
May I, Mr. Chair? I called UMCT, which is the company that the town employs to fight claims and unemployment for us, and I asked that very question. And because teachers work 183 days and their salary is apportioned during that time, in other words, they get paid for those 183 days. They don't get paid for the time in the summertime. Therefore, they can begin to collect, I was told, as soon as school closes if they have a layoff notice in hand, which they do currently.
Dr. Rabinovich, I would get a second opinion to that. But that's not the topic for tonight.
Right.
We're not going to debate the teachers. No, ma'am. No. Thank you.
Did we
I
calculate
appreciate
out
it,
that
but
date?
No, thank you. July 25th was recommended as a date by the town clerk.
So May 1st to June 1st is 31 days.
July 4th is a holiday, she said.
To July 1st would be another 30 days. So that would be 62 days. So we would 28 days. So according to what Attorney Bowen just read, it seems to me like July 28th is that 90-day.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Titlebaum.
My understanding of what Mr. Bowen read to us was an either-or situation. If you proceeded as we did at town meeting to approve these questions at the annual town meeting, which was what we conducted in April and the first day of May when it finally closed, then September 15th is the deadline. That is what applies. If, however, we had called, for example, a special town meeting to deal with some other issue and at that time had considered and approved these questions, then the 90-day deadline would apply. So perhaps we could hear from Mr. Bowen as to what I think it is.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bowen.
Thank you. The 26th date works, I think, for a couple of reasons, because the factor that isn't part of the Chapter 59, Section 21C is the need for the town clerk to conduct voter registration and certain processes that happen before you can actually legally hold an election. My recommendation would be that you honor the town clerk's date because presumably it takes into account the things that she needs to do. Under any interpretation of the law, it's within either the 90 days or the September 15th. That's what I think.
Okay, so that date is fine legally. Okay. All right. Absent any additional comments, I'm going to begin going through this list that Attorney Bowen drafted for me. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to place the following levy limit override pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21CG, on the ballot for an election to be called for July 25th, 2012. Quote, shall the town of Wareham be allowed to assess an additional $780,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of preventing the layoff of 19.5 teachers for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2012.
Second.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow and seconded by Mr. Titlebaum. On the question, what happens if, it's a long shot, if this thing was to go to a ballot and pass, and the 780,000, as Dr. Rabinovich represented, will save these 19.5 teachers for the year of 2012. In the following year, the town collects this money again, puts it into the general fund. There's nothing that forces that money to go to the schools. Are
That's
we
correct.
back here again, doing it again?
You're looking at me, Mr. Chairman. I'm not all-knowing.
It's on the question.
I
So
know
if-
many people think I may be.
I know
but
you've thought about this. I'll ask Dr. Rabinovich if that's
It-
okay with the board.
It would go through the normal budget process where we go to the FinCom and then the town administrator and everybody. I mean, the negotiation process that goes on every year about the amount of money we have and where we can spend it. So that's the process it's going to have to go through.
Just to answer, when you have the 2.5, Prop 2.5, the first year you can specify where it goes. The
Right.
second year on, you cannot by law specify it. It sits there, and it's hopefully the best judgment of the people making the decision.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion passes 3-2. Mrs. Winslow?
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to place the following post-proposition 2.5 debt exclusion question pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21CK, on the ballot for an election to be called for July 25th, 2012. Quote, shall the town of Wareham be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to purchase new school buses, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto.
Second for discussion.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow, seconded by Mr. Titlebaum. For discussion, Mr. Titlebaum.
Dr. Rabinovich, could you give us a rough estimate as to what this cost would be? I'm not looking for, within $1,000, but can you get us within a ballpark, 10,000?
The amount that was voted at town meeting was $360,000, approximately 2.5 cents per 1,000.
Thank you.
And this is for the bus question. Right? Anything else?
Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification from Attorney Bowen. The debt exclusion questions require a supermajority of the board, correct?
With your permission, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bowen.
Ms. Winslow is correct. Chapter 59, Section 21CK begins by saying by a 2/3 vote of the local appropriating authority. Local appropriating authority is defined in Chapter 59, Section 21C, subsection A, as
Town
in a
meeting.
town, the Board of Selectmen. 2/3 of 5 is 4.
2/3 of 5 is 4. Okay.
Municipal math.
Yes.
Municipal math, yeah.
That's how it works.
I hope
Okay.
you're not teaching this math to the children.
Sorry. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Roll call.
Roll call?
Yeah, I can't hear what that was.
That was 3-2-0, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
That motion fails.
I
Next.
move that the Board of Selectmen vote to place the following post-proposition 2.5 debt exclusion question pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21CK, on the ballot for an election to be called for July 25th, 2012. Quote, shall the town of Wareham be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2.5, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to repair the Wareham High School gymnasium roof, including the payment of all costs incidental or relative thereto.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow,
Second.
second by Mr. Titlebaum. Question. Dr. Rabinovich, is this for a replacement of the gymnasium roof or a repair?
This is a
It says
replacement
repair.
of the roof for $110,000.
Then this should be amended.
Amended, how so, Mr. Chair?
This is to repair the roof. This is to replace the roof.
Town meeting said repair.
Well, repair and replace are two different things. Repair could be a patch.
Or it could
I know what the intention. I
necessitate,
know what the intention is, but
it could necessitate replacement in order to repair it.
But the intention here is to replace. This would be a new roof on the gymnasium.
Attorney Bowen.
Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding that the wording of what was presented at town meeting went through bond counsel, and I think Dr. Rabinovich could probably speak to this, but it's my understanding that the concept of replacing the roof and versus repair was dealt with by bond counsel, and that this wording actually, as to repair, actually emanated from bond counsel.
I'm looking at the town meeting vote, Mr. Chairman, and that is how it was phrased in the motion at town meeting.
What was phrased?
It says repairs. I move that Mr. Heath of the Finance Committee moved that $110,000 is appropriated for repairs to the Wareham High School gymnasium roof, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto. That to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, and it goes on about the Prop 2.5 debt exclusion.
Mr. Chairman, when these motions were compared against the certified copies of the votes that came from the town clerk's office.
But the intention, Dr. Rabinovich, is to replace that roof, put a new roof on the gym.
That is correct.
Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
410.
410. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to place the following post-proposition 2.5 debt exclusion question pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21C(k) on the ballot for an election to be called for July 25th, 2012. Quote, shall the town of Wareham be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to fund the purchase of instructional materials for use in Wareham Public School classrooms, including, but not limited to, textbooks and technology, and including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow.
Second.
Second by Mr. Slavin. On the question. Mr. Titlebaum.
This is putting you on the spot a little bit, Dr. Rabinovich and possibly Jeff. I'm curious to know what value you could place, a dollar value, on the existing curriculum materials of the nature that we would be voting for here, currently in the Wareham schools.
I don't know if this is going to answer your question. The state and the federal government, through the new core curriculum, the Mass Core, has completely changed what our high school math curriculum needs to be. Not to get too far into it, but what used to be Algebra 1 in 9th grade is now basically goes through the middle of Algebra 2. Geometry now includes trigonometry. The idea is to get children to the point where they can take in calculus and have room for it in their schedules. So the curriculum is being rewritten this summer. The materials that we have that are 7, 8, 9 years old may have a value of $100,000 if somebody were willing to buy them. No one in Massachusetts, or for that matter in the country, would want them because they won't be aligned with the new curriculum that we're all going to be assessed on. So I really, what I say the value is and what a book company is going to be willing to pay for probably isn't correct. But that's why the need for those textbooks and material, as well as English language arts. I can tell you that this is split approximately $260,000 of this $341 are textbooks. $81,000 is for technology to replace outdated computers on teachers' desks so that they can communicate with parents by email and the use of PowerSchool at the elementary schools.
Okay, so are all of these, or is all of this money that you're looking for dedicated to the high school curriculum?
Math at the high school and ELA at the elementary schools.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's a motion and a second on the floor.
I understand that.
Okay.
I heard it.
Okay.
Mr. Slavin? Did you have anything? Mrs. Begley? I guess, my only commentary is books. How much of this is for books?
$260,000.
Does anybody buy books anymore?
Absolutely.
Don't we use technology? I know you're shaking your head.
We don't have the infrastructure.
You had a very successful program that just took place. I heard this from teachers.
Don't
Wareham.
misconstrue the shaking of my head. I can't remember the last time
It's a very serious question. by the way.
exactly, and I took
Because
it.
to buy books for 6 figures and have them outdated very quickly is a concern.
You're looking at someone who I can't remember the last time I read a physical book.
Right.
So, but 3 hours ago, Dr. Rabinovich and I and another member of the school committee and our head of technology and head of curriculum had a meeting to discuss precisely this issue. And unfortunately, what we discovered was, A, the resources with respect to iPads and things like that are not available for us to expand this, what appears to have been a very successful program. But even more importantly, the infrastructure, the network, the bandwidth that's available to us would bring the experiment to a screeching halt. So as much as we would love to expand this in an appropriate fashion, measuring the success as we go along, it is simply not available to us. So I would love to not be buying textbooks anymore, but we can't afford not to until we have an infrastructure that can support the technology.
Okay. Anybody else? Mr. Titlebaum.
Just to go back and to make sure I'm clear on this, you stated earlier in response to my first question, I think, that the current textbooks are between 8 and 9 years old that you're seeking to replace?
I believe that is correct.
Can you divine from any tea leaves or anything else how long any books that would be purchased now might last into the future? In other words, when you're talking about national course standards, No Child Left Behind, this, that, and the other thing, is there any way to predict how long these books will be useful to the school?
I believe these will be useful as long as the last. So if we got 8 to 9 years out of the last ones, these should also last 8 to 9 years. And I would hope in the in-between time we'd be able to improve our infrastructure to be able to move into the 21st century.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
No.
410. Next.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to place the following, guys, I know it's been a long time, but I move, this is the last one. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to place the following post-proposition 2.5 debt exclusion question pursuant to General Law, Chapter 59, subsection 21CK, on the ballot for an election to be called for July 25th, 2012. Quote, shall the town of Wareham be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to pay costs of a feasibility study at the Minot Forest Elementary School in Wareham, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow,
Second.
second by Mr. Slavin. Question.
Dr. Rabinovich, you told us earlier that we are guaranteed a 60% return on any monies that we expend on the feasibility study.
That is correct.
What are the additional sorts of things that the state is looking for to bump up that percentage of recovery from proposals?
In the proposal that gets crafted during the feasibility study, because part of the feasibility study is hiring an architect and an owner's representative. But for instance, by doing a green plan, perhaps installing solar panels on the roof to generate some of the electricity, maybe reusing filtered water systems and so forth, you can get an additional 2% for that. They also look at your records for the maintenance. And then if you can prove that you have maintained your current facility, then they will give you 2 points for that. So those are two that come to mind. I'd have to go back to the regulations to find the rest.
Can you tell us how many students currently attend the Minot Forest School?
The plan is to have Minot Forest to be a K through 5 facility. Therefore, it would have the 575 students that are currently at Minot, plus the 120 students that are at the Hammond Elementary School, which would be about 675.
So in effect, then, this would lead to the closure of Hammond, or are there other students at Hammond?
It would necessitate a different use of Hammond.
Do you have such a use in mind?
There are always other thoughts. However, we need to do a facilities plan, a master plan that looks at all of our space, and then to come before the board to talk about what those potential uses would be.
Would approval of this measure and the construction of a new Minot Forest School do anything to alleviate the temporary classrooms that have been going on for 30-something years, I believe, at the Deacon School?
Absolutely, because there are 4 portable classrooms at the Minot Forest School, there are 6 at the Deacon School, and there are 4 at Wareham High School. So at least at the elementary school, we would be able to host enough students so that we would not need to use the portables in either of the elementary schools.
Okay, thank you. I think I've pestered you enough.
Mr. Slavin?
Just to get some clarity on this whole subject, on the Minot setup, the word study is kind of a misnomer. It's my understanding, I believe, that what happens is the state looks at this, whether it's a remodel, renovation, expansion, or a replacement. So when we say replacement, the state may come back and tell us, well, we agree to A, B, or C. It's one, you don't have a choice. They'll tell you what it is. And we basically, if we want to pick that, we get 60% plus. Or if we don't want to pick it, then we pay all of it, correct?
The state will make a recommendation for the most financially feasible for both the town and the state. And then it's up to the building committee to ask the difficult questions and make that recommendation.
Thank you.
Mrs. Begley?
Nothing, thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Dr. Rabinowitz, if we could just walk through this. I seem to recall we started this process a little over a year ago when we did the applications. When we submitted the
Actually, it
applications.
was 2 years ago
2
that
years
we made application to the state. The first year we were not chosen. The second year we were not chosen. It was the third year after the Mass School Building Authority came and walked through the school, and after they finished a statewide rating where out of a possible 4 points, 4 being the worst and 1 being the best, Minot Forest was rated A3, the only facility in town of the school department that was rated a 3, and then they said yes, that we could move ahead.
And of course, so we don't know. That might not necessarily be a good thing, right?
That's correct.
We didn't get a 3 because we were shining there, right?
Correct.
And so, in this number is the total dollar number?
The $575,000. However, after you take the 60% that will get reimbursed,
Right.
this is approximately 2 cents per 1,000.
Now, This is only to cover the feasibility study.
This brings you through the design plan where you have a set of plans to be able to cost out and negotiate with the MSBA.
And then at that point, we would
We would have to come before town meeting again
come
and
back to
go
this
back-
process to build a new school.
Absolutely.
Any idea where that number's at?
The only thing I can tell you is that we completed the middle school renovation and expansion program in January of 2005, and that was a $23 million project.
Right. I think this is a similar program that you and I talked about one day on the phone in New Bedford, right?
That is
I called
correct.
you and said, how is New Bedford getting all these brand new schools? And this was the program.
Yes,
so
sir.
we finally got on this list.
Yep.
So you would anticipate they would begin this soon, right?
Well,
As soon as
after the vote, and
If the
after we
vote is
then go
yes,
through the
right.
process of hiring an architect, and it's going to take a while, at least
we
2
have
years.
a member of the board on that building.
Yes, you do.
It's Mrs. Begley, right?
That is
Goes through.
correct.
Okay.
Depends on this, and it depends on the ballot.
Right. Yeah, we have to get through the ballot. If this doesn't pass on the ballot, have you got the money anywhere?
No, sir.
I didn't think so. Anything else? Okay. Made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
410.
Mr. Chair, I move that we take a 5-minute recess.
Second.
Second.
Thank you very much.
Well, first, before we do that, Dr. Rabinovich, Mr. Sweat, thank you very much for your time and attention and coming in. And Dr. Rabinovich, don't forget your stick.
I've already taken it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank
And
you
I'd
all
like
for
to
coming
thank
out.
anyone who's leaving for your courtesy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
5 minutes. Invite the members of the board. Mr. Slavin, are you out there? Mrs. Winslow? Mr. Titlebaum? Let's wrap it up.
I should,
Well, I give you 10, but I make up for it on the way.
well, you have to have Sandy Title.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Next up, we have interviews.
interviews to the Bike Path Committee.
Yes. I see Michael is here. There he is. Next time there's a crowded room like that, Michael, just come up here and sit with us. Yeah, you know, it's fine.
I don't want to sit up front like you guys. That's really the thing.
Okay. Mr. Langford, would you like to just tell us why you're interested in being reappointed to the Bike Path Committee?
I'm actually very interested in being reappointed because I think
Folks, please cut out the chatter. Thank you.
my interest really stems from the fact that I think we're at the critical point now of starting to make some real headway. It's been a long haul. This has not been one of those projects you jump onto and it's done next week and so forth.
Right.
This has been, most of us have been on the pathway now 10 years or better. I'm interested in seeing it actually come to fruition. We've started what the state has mandated out of us, as far as the committee is concerned.
Right.
To have public meetings among the abutters and officials of the town and so forth to discuss how it might impact their neighborhoods. And once we get that accomplished, there's very little reason why we can't push forward with the project needs form and initiation forms and stuff like that. So I'd like to see it through to that point. In all honesty, that's my real goal, and I think we're at that point of seeing that happen. And so that's
Okay.
my big focus.
Any questions from the board? Mr. Titlebaum?
None. Thank you.
Mr. Slavin?
On the bike path itself, what is our status as far as, again, we were going to originally use the railroad, beds and stuff, which we can't use. I believe we have CPA funding for a certain dollar amount put aside, but I know we have some difficulties with Mass DOT, et cetera. Do we have a timeline within reason?
Not really, but one of the things we need from the officials of the town, we need a town official to sit on and go to the District 5 meetings and champion this project, to get it put on the tip and so forth. Our former town administrator did it for a while, but then he appointed the planning commissioner, and that hasn't worked out. In all honesty, the planning commissioner is probably too busy to do that or whatever, but it's necessary. Both Serpent and the people from District 5 say you need to have a town official represent your town at meetings routinely and to be there to champion your project. So it's unrealistic for us to give a date other than meet all the requirements unless we have somebody, one of the officials of the town, whether it be the town administrator or somebody he or she appoints to take that role. I mean, the committee and the Friends are always willing to go in and be a face, but we have no official authority. So that's really the biggest issue. And we, like I said, we'd love to have somebody stand up and and say that.
Could you then forward that request to the chairman just so we make sure?
Who's the liaison to Bike Path?
Me.
Yeah.
Mr. Charbonneau was directed by Mr. Andrews
Right.
to represent the Bike Path Committee for District 5.
And do you have it this year?
I believe so.
Any questions?
Just to clarify, Mr. Langford, so that people know
Right.
that you're not going to be coming to town meeting asking for hundreds of thousands of dollars from the townspeople.
No, as you've been saying from the very beginning, this is a 90-10 project from the get-go. And what that really means is 90% is paid by the state and federal government. The town portion is looked at as being the design engineering of the project. And that can be done in a lot of very creative ways, not just strictly financing cash, because we do have town engineers and people who could design parts of this and say, take on some of those roles without costing us anything that we're already paying these folks. So it is, in-kind services by big employers in our town. Those kinds of donations could go directly to the town's portion. So hopefully we'll have that done. We've also been talking very heavily with CETA recently, because one of the early designs that they have was something we thought about very early on, was connecting the nail factory down to downtown, and that is very feasible. There are some little strips of land that are owned by private owners that have no use anymore. They don't take cranberries from Main Street down to the railroads anymore. So those little strips of land could probably be, with CETA's help, acquired fairly easily, and that would be a wonderful connection as well down through downtown. We wouldn't have to cut around Main Street and to get onto Merchant's Way. So
good, very good. Mrs. Winslow, any questions for Mr. Langford?
Mr. Langford,
Hey.
you already know my question.
Go ahead.
You are a U.S. citizen, correct?
I am a U.S. citizen,
Thank you.
born and raised.
Michael, I just want to thank you for all your hard work, and through Mrs. Begley, anything we can do to help you, just let us know.
Okay.
We'll be happy to do that.
And hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday night at the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner.
That's the plan.
Okay, good.
Okay,
The
thank you.
hospital lets me over there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, did we already call Lois Fountain? Was she here? Okay.
Not here.
We did get delayed, so perhaps the office could invite back.
At this point, I think this may have been, we might have some invitations going out, but
Okay.
the last 2 weeks of the month we'll be appointing.
Louise Paolela?
She's since resigned just recently,
Okay. Okay. That takes care of the bike path.
So we have an opening on the Bike Path Committee.
So we have an opening.
You should be advertising that, Michael. We have an opening on the Bike Path Committee.
Next, we have the Historical Commission. And to the Historical Commission, oh, it must be right here. I see Angela Dunham. Mrs. Dunham, you must be up for reappointment. Yes, your name is circled.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. How are you tonight?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Sorry for the delay. If you could just give us your interest in being reappointed to the Historical Commission, please. Speak direct. You got to get real close.
Sorry. I am very interested in continuing my work on the Historical Commission. The Historical Commission, I've been on the Historical Commission for several years, as you know. And most of our meetings relate to demolition delay hearings at this point in time. There are also other concerns, obviously, but most of our meetings concern demolition delay. We are currently talking about possibly putting some teeth into the current bylaw. That will be an ongoing discussion. We also, and Mr. Slavin probably has more of an update on this. Last night I missed a meeting because my grandson was promoted from preschool, but last night.
Congratulations.
Yay.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, proud Nana. However, the joint historical committees, the Historic District Commission, the Historical Society, and the Historical Commission all gathered together. And one of our concerns is design guidelines, because when the applicants come forward to discuss the demolition of a property here in town, we are very much interested in keeping the character of the neighborhood. So that is something that's on the front burner, excuse me, when we discuss their applications. It's very unfortunate that when these demolitions come forward that we are not able to report to you at this point in time that we've been able to save many properties, to have them move these buildings or to repurpose them. Due to the poor economy, it is cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
So sadly,
Well, we appreciate your effort. Mr.
That's the
Titlebaum,
case.
any questions?
No.
Mr. Slavin?
No.
Mrs. Begley?
No, just thanks, Angie, because you're on 3?
yes.
So CPC, Historic Commission, and Minor Forest.
I am.
God bless you.
Thank you.
I think I've interviewed you before, haven't I?
Sorry?
I think you've been up here before.
I have.
So my question's been asked and answered.
I am a citizen of the U.S., yes, born and raised.
Well,
As soon as they put that question on the application, then I'll stop asking.
Thank you very much. I
So-
believe it's coming soon to a store near you. I've requested it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I guess we just turned the page, right?
Yes, Mrs. Dunham does not need to move because next up we have the Minot Forest Committee.
I would very much like to continue my work on Minot Forest. I have an update for you. Unfortunately, the gentleman that we have contracted with to do the red pine harvest has had surgery. And I am supposed to contact him tomorrow to get an update on what his situation is. But we do want to go forward with that. I apologize to the community because we have sent out letters to the abutters informing them that it would go forward. However, it's now been delayed due to this person's surgery. So as soon as he's well, he tells me that he intends to move forward and not to be concerned, that we're going to get it done. So Minot Forest doesn't have any money. No, I'm not going to beg you for money, although I would like
We don't have any.
a budget, but
We don't have any.
I understand.
I won't use the line "get in line," but
We
you
don't
know, a
have
lot of
any.
people are trying.
I know. I
You
will.
understand.
It's my job to put that out there.
Philanthropy is always best. Mr. Titlebaum.
It's interesting. I realize yet again that I've forgotten to give you a letter of resignation from the Minor Forest Committee, but yet I look at the roster here and I see that I'm not on there. Did you take a vote to strike me from the rolls, or how did that come
We
about?
took your name off there immediately.
Yeah.
We're very quick to take your name off.
I see that.
Yes. You didn't have a choice.
No. Well, anyway, now's your opportunity to tell everybody that we have to reappoint you, essentially, because if you don't get reappointed, you lose a quorum. So,
I do have you hostage at this point in time, yes.
yeah, you
And it's a
do.
good time to advertise an opening.
Yeah, 2 openings.
Please, we have 2 openings on Historical Commission, and we have 2 openings for Minot Forest. Please, we need your help. We know that there are a lot of people out there that have the abilities, the talents, and hopefully the time to come and help us out. Please, we have 2 openings on both Historical Commission and Minot Forest.
Okay.
Are you enjoying holding us hostage?
I am.
Angie, who's not requesting to be reappointed on the Historical Commission?
Gary Franklin has recently resigned. And, of course, Mr. Titlebaum from Minot Forest, so. we
And the
need
other
people.
thing that the Minor Forest has been working on is a conservation restriction
Yes, that's ongoing also.
for Minor Forest.
That's actually pretty much done. We need Holder, and that is something that needs to be pursued more aggressively now.
Okay. Thank you.
already asked.
I did. You're correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much for
Angela,
coming.
Thank you very much.
And
for
we hope to
everything
see
do.
you at the Volunteer Appreciation Dinner Tuesday night.
Thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
I hear that Mr. Chairman will be dancing with all the chairmen of the boards.
Next up.
Really?
Mr.
I'm gonna remember
Chairman.
that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely. We don't want to be discriminatory. Okay, we have the Zoning Board of Appeals. Mr. Cronin, I do not see. Mr. Michael Johnson is here.
Good evening, Mr. Johnson. How are you
Good evening.
today?
My name is Michael Johnson. I seek reappointment for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Basically, I've enjoyed my time over the last year with the board. I enjoy serving my community, and I have a lot of zoning experience in my day job. You know, my company builds cell towers, so at nighttime when I'm not sitting on the board in Wareham, I'm, you know, in other surrounding towns trying to get variances, special permits, whatever we need to build these sites. So I think I have a lot to offer the board, and I'm hopeful that I'll be reappointed for another term.
Mrs. Begley, any questions?
Um,
Hey, I got past a certain. No, I got to switch it up.
Now you have to switch
I
over.
gotta switch it up.
So, Mr. Johnson, you don't do, you're not looking for variances in the town of Wareham for your place
Nope,
of business?
nope.
Okay, just to be sure. Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow.
It's a reappointment, but he wasn't, I didn't appoint him, did I? No. 1 year. Oh, okay. Asked and answered. Thank
That's
you.
really nice that she don't remember you from last year, isn't it, Mike?
I don't know if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
He doesn't listen to me anyways. Don't worry
I just
about
want to
it.
thank you for your volunteerism to the town. I don't have any questions for you, Mr. Slavin.
We'll see you on Tuesday night at the volunteer dinner.
Just a quick question. How many meetings you able to attend in the last year?
Pretty much I went to every meeting aside from the Walmart hearings because I wasn't involved from the beginning, so there wasn't much of a point to go to those ones. But pretty much every meeting aside from a couple of the Walmart hearings.
Okay. Thank you.
Wilma agrees with that. She did. What's the title of
No questions. Thank you for your service.
You don't get a question, Mr. Bowen. Sorry. Thanks, Mike. I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank
your
you.
patience tonight,
Thanks,
but
no problem.
we wanted to move that up.
Next up, we have reappointments for constables. I am just going to go through.
I would entertain a motion to table at the request of Chief Stanley.
All of them or just that one?
All of them till next week.
Second.
Okay.
I have did someone make a motion? I suggested.
Motion to table discussion of the reappointment for the constables at the request of Chief Stanley.
We didn't invite it.
Second.
I have a motion made in second.
We never do.
Anything on the question?
We never invite the reappointments in.
Anything on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 5-0.
Okay, we have the appointment to Old Colony Elder Services and Constables. Well,
Yeah.
no, wait. I think we just did the constables. I think that's a Scribner's error.
Martha is here on this.
Mrs. Strahan, thank you.
This is an appointment so that she is able to attend the meeting that's coming up here very shortly. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
Mrs. Begley, any questions?
I don't believe so. We have a letter here from the chair of the Council on Aging, asking for us to do this as soon as possible so that Martha could have a signed
Right.
endorsement from the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, their next meeting is the third week of June. So, Mrs. Winslow,
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Titlebaum,
No questions.
Mr. Slavin.
No questions. Thank
Have
you,
a
Martha.
motion, please.
I move to appoint Martha Strahan to be the delegate to the Old Colony Elderly Services Board of Directors for a term to expire no later than June 13th, 2013.
Have a motion made.
I'm sorry, June 30th.
Motion made by
What'd I
Mrs.
say?
Winslow.
Oh.
Seconded by Mrs. Begley. Anything else on the question?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? 5-0-0. Martha, thank you very much.
And
for
we'll
your
see you
service.
Tuesday night.
And enjoy your
I'm
trip
planning
up
on it. I'm
to
looking forward.
enjoy your trip up to Brockton, isn't it? Don't they?
Yes, it's
You have
10
to go up
a.m.
to
It's the
Brockton.
fourth Tuesday
I
of the
thought I
month
did
at
ask
10
him.
a.m.
Oh.
And they have a lot of guest speakers afterwards, too.
Huh? Do
Mr.
they have-
Langford,
do
are
they
you
have
still
food
here?
at those meetings?
No, they don't. They
Ah.
do give us coffee.
Too bad.
I asked you if we'd see you Tuesday night, didn't I? Okay. And you'll be dancing with Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Okay, Mrs. Winslow.
Mr. Holmes, this is going to be fun. Okay. Minutes. I just need to find the minutes. Okay, April 10th. Mrs. Begley, these are yours, so you'll need to sign them. I move to approve the minutes of the meeting of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners from April 10th, 2012, as written.
Motion made by Mrs. Winslow.
Second.
Second by Mr. Slavin on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 401. Thank you, Mr. Title.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Selectmen Sewer Commissioners dated April 24th, 2012, as written.
Motion by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mrs. Begley. Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? 401.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes of the meeting of the Selectmen Sewer Commissioners dated May 15th, 2012, as written.
Motion made and second. Motion made by Mrs. Winslow, second by Mrs. Begley. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 500.
Okay, now we are up to sewer business. We have any sewer business, Mr. Chair. Is there any sewer business?
Does anyone have any sewer business?
And that would
Yes,
be
Mr.
sewer business that was unanticipated because there's nothing on the
Right.
agenda.
We will just get an update from Mr. Campina on the ongoing meeting of July 14th.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members
And-
of the board.
and
Yes, it's,
very brief, because-
Letters are going out. We have them on letterhead.
Yep.
We've got the envelopes, the labels made, ready for the envelopes.
Right.
The next couple of days, they'll be hitting the mailbox.
Okay. Are you getting any email traffic questions, any of that
Nothing.
kind of stuff from people?
Nothing.
Again, I want to remind the public, we're soliciting your input. Please don't call the office unless you don't have a computer. If you have a computer, please email anyone of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Campina, with questions that you would like to make sure that are answered on July the 14th, so that we all come.
They can even drop
we
them
all
off
come
if they-
away with the information.
If they're in the neighborhood, drop them off.
Yep.
Mail them any way.
Any way you can get it here.
Get 'em to us.
We're trying to drive the information your way, and we can't think of everything. So if you have a specific question, please get it to us. All right.
That's it.
You're up first. You
Okay.
have the first policy for us.
Well, you have the two that you've had for the longest amount of time, the sewer bill. Remember the one on the? This was on the back of the sewer bill for years, and you've had this for quite some time. So I don't know if you have it in front of you, but it's the one we've been discussing, and you've had it for quite some time. We got a revision of it, and the addition is simply on this one here. The only addition is demolitions.
Go ahead.
That's all it is, demolitions. We added demolitions. If someone demolitions their home with a permit from the building inspections, a letter, the demo permit, they get a cut and cap permit from the sewer department. At that point in time, when they demo, we'll put their account on hold, and we'll bring it back off hold once the occupancy permit has been issued by the building department.
What is the policy number, Guy?
Um,
Is there a number on it?
Never been a number. It's Wareham Sewer Bill Policy is what it is. But there's never been a number to this policy.
Mr. Chair,
So then we would go in the same.
part of the problem is that some of the policies are on the Wareham Pollution, the Water Control Facility letterhead.
Right.
And then we also have some that are on the Board of Selectmen's letterhead. So it's a question of combining the two piles.
So this is the sewer plant. This is out of the sewer plant letter. What letterhead?
This is on the treatment plant letterhead. It's always has been on the treatment plant letterhead.
Right.
I couldn't tell you the origination of this, if it was something that the policy was
From the sewer
constructed
commissioners.
from the sewer commissioners or from the plant. I don't have any idea.
What's the date?
It's undated. It's
Just that's
undated.
the best.
Of course it is.
Well, what
All
happened
right.
is it's always been on the back of the sewer bill. And some
What we're
point in
gonna
time,
do
we
is,
stopped doing it.
Again, we're going to formulate these books and get them started this week, and we'll just put that one up front.
And I'd like to get, okay, we'll put it in the, but I'd also like
Yeah.
to get this back on the sewer bills.
And we're
back
going to
on
get
the back
those
of the sewer
numbers as
bills.
well. Well, that's it. That's fine.
Because
It's
that's
not
what it
up to
should be.
us. You send out the bills.
Yes, I do.
Well, put what you like on them.
Because
Once it's been revised.
Yes, and because it does explain to the person that gets the bill what the policies are, what's available, and there's a time frame, so we can get these done in a timely manner. Because if you expire and you go beyond the time, then it doesn't have to be entertained. So it puts the onus on the homeowner to say, wait a minute, I may have a problem. I need to do my due diligence and get in there. Not 2 years later, 3 years later, when it's quite a problem to get it done. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
Second
Whoa. Can I have a motion to accept sewer
Mr.
policy, sewer bill policy?
Mr. Chairman, the policies were not included in our packet.
These policies have been
absolutely,
in
for
our
quite some time.
possessions for weeks.
I understand that, but they
Well-
weren't listed on the agenda as policies that we were going to be reviewing tonight either.
They've been. He was here last week and told us that he was coming up with the same 2 policies that we've had in our packet.
But they haven't been in our packet.
They
so
have
that's my
been. We
point.
got them in our packet weeks ago.
I didn't get them in my packet.
Yes. He's been bringing these same 2 policies in front of us for a couple of months.
I understand that, but if we're
Well-
going to be voting on policies, they should appear on the agenda because the only policies that I have from him were in the form of an email.
Would anyone make a motion? I'm sorry? I can't hear you. If someone would make a motion to accept it?
I'll make the motion and then we can discuss it. I move that we accept the water pollution control. Is that the letterhead, Mr. Campina?
It's on the, I would suggest.
Having
we
as
put
the-
it on
We're going to start a new sequence of numbers.
Yes,
Okay.
but I would suggest it goes on the sewer commissioner's letterhead. I think from now on, everything should go on the sewer commissioner's letterhead. I really believe that. And then there's no confusion. We eliminate any confusion.
Right.
And
What's-
as we approve
What's the
these-
title of that policy?
Well, it's a policy. It's called the Wareham Sewer Bill Policy.
I move that we accept the Wareham sewer bill policy as amended.
I have a motion made by Mr. Begley.
Second.
Second by Mr. Slavin. All in favor? Anything else on the question? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
1. Abstain? 410. Next.
This one here, again, it's simply a amendment to, what happened, let me explain, you got this one also. We're asking that the sewer commissioners vote to, the title of this is, okay, Amendment to Selectmen Sewer Commissioners meeting dated 11/25/97. That's all it is. You have the original, and what it is, in that particular date, the Board of Sewer Commissioners voted to allow the plumbing inspector to do all issuing of permits for sewer installations and to inspect them. That hasn't been done since 1998. After 1998, we've been doing them all at the sewer plant. So what I'm asking basically is a motion, it's on there in the motion, simply to say that the sewer department is now the designee or the agent for the sewer commissioners to do the issuing of the permits, licenses, and to inspect the work of all the installations of the projects that have been going on, which we have been doing for quite some time. So why I'm doing this is because technically it's the plumbing department's responsibility. It's not ours. So we have nothing to do with it, but we've been doing this work for quite some time, and we continue to do it. So it's just, to me, it's just type of, cleaning up and saying, no, we'll bring it back. 'Cause it always used to be in the sewer department. At that point in time, they decided to bring it to the plumbing. The plumbing said, we can't do it. They left it, gave it back to the sewer department, but it's never been done officially.
Right.
I'm just trying to get an official from the Board of Selectmen to designate the water pollution control facility once again in charge of the installations of the sewer department. That's all. That's what I'm trying to accomplish with this.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Mr. Titlebaum.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I guess this might go to Town Council as well. Is there anything in the Code of Mass Regulations relating to sewer that would prevent your department from doing this and would state a preference for a plumber to do it?
Not to my knowledge. I think where plumbing comes in is a state plumbing code that's within 10 feet of the building. So we're allowed to go within 10 feet of the building. From that point on, the plumbing code takes care of it. We've discussed it with our local plumbing inspector and the inspectional services, and they've allowed us to go to the outside of the wall of the building. We can't go inside whatsoever. So, and it's always been that way. Just like I say, in that short period of time, in 1997, it was changed because the plumbing inspector said he wanted to do it all, and it was granted, and he just said, I can't do it, and he dropped it, and so we've been doing it ever since. To my knowledge, there's no regulation that said we cannot do it, but I know we can go within 10 feet of the building.
Well, I guess this begs the question then. You said you can go up to the foundation now. with an agreement with the plumbing inspector.
Correct.
Who goes inside the house?
Plumbing inspector, we don't. You see, what happens is we made an agreement with the plumbing inspector. If there's something, a problem inside the house, then that's a plumbing department. We don't get involved. We inform the resident they need to contact a plumber, who will contact the plumbing department, and anything inside the house they take care of. We have nothing to do with inside the house.
Mr. Slavin?
Guy, hasn't there been a little bit of an ongoing issue as far as getting access from the plumbing department into the house on some of the sewer installations?
We've had some issues. We really have, and we've done really a good job of resolving them. We've had a couple of meetings, and I think what's happening in the past is that some of the installers would go inside the homes, and they did it with the blessings of their plumber, which is totally illegal. I don't care. The plumber can't give them permission to go inside. It's got to be done by the plumbing department, Special Services. It's the only one that can give permission. So we've rectified that. We've had some meetings with the plumbing department. Say, hey guys, this is the way it has to be. Don't overstep your bounds. And so we've really done a good job in clearing that up.
So the plumbing inspectors do have the right to go inside the house now?
Yes, they do.
On this issue?
What happens is, yes, the installer will pull a plumbing permit. He'll have his plumber pull one, and that gives the jurisdiction of the plumbing inspector to go inside that building and see what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Begley?
We've discussed this, this has been ongoing, Guy, but my question is this. If the water pollution control facility is doing the inspections and, are you saying licensing?
What we do is we issue the permits.
Issuing the permits.
Yes.
So
we license the installers.
Mm-hmm. So you don't need, there's no special certifications that's required in order to do that?
No.
Is my question.
No, not to inspect the installation of the sewer line, no. There's no certification anybody requires at the sewer department.
So where did the 10 feet come in?
That's a plumbing code. It's a state code that anything within 10 feet of the building is owned by the plumbing department. It's a plumber who has to connect actually to the building. That's a plumbing code.
So we're violating that plumbing code. Is that what you're saying?
No, because the plumber is allowing us to go, if it's 3 feet, 2 feet, so we did it with his blessing. But the policy is we go 10 feet and we stop. He allows us to go 6 feet, because the problem is the pipe coming out is 10 feet. So if it's 9 feet, 8 inches, or 7 feet, he's saying just connect it. As long as it's a hard 4-inch pipe, that's it, and we connect nothing else. We can't bring a 2-inch pipe in, we can't do any side streams, just connect to that pipe, and that pipe only. And that's what he's allowed us to do. And that's within 10 feet at times, absolutely. And most of them, if they're out 10 feet, the new ones are all out 10 feet. But some of the old buildings, back then the code was 3 feet, 2 feet. So he said, just go ahead and connect them. So we've been doing that.
So, and that's allowable by law? I want to ask Mr. Burke.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you don't mind, Mr. Holmes. Just because
briefly.
If the plumbing code is 10 feet out and we're going closer, that's still that's allowable.
Yes, they have a drain layers license and they work with the sewer department. It's when work was happening inside the houses. Certain homes now, obviously your septic system has to be 10 feet away, but on these older homes that are being hooked to sewer now, they're finding some of the connections a lot closer. And basically, as Guy said, they're just hooking up the sewer drain, the main drain, and so that's fine.
Okay,
and
just
they
wanna be sure.
worked it out so that everybody's on the same page now, and we're in favor of the policy.
Thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chairman, again, we received an email that was weeks ago. I would really like in the future, whatever policies we're going to be discussing, to be listed on the agenda so not only the board is notified, but the public is notified appropriately.
Well, we can always do that. I've given, these are on the agenda every week, and any policies that are going to be reviewed will be given to you in advance.
But you can...
Some of these things don't even have numbers.
But we could give them names, and
Okay,
certainly...
all right, I get the point. It'll be on the list, but you bring your copies. I'm not printing copies every night of the meetings either. You're giving these in advance, bring them with you. We're not going to keep printing copies and handing them out.
What I'm saying is that...
It is on the agenda.
It's confusing to get an email that may have been 3 or 4 weeks ago and then have it show up on an agenda.
These have been printed and handed out to the selectmen already.
I have not received a copy.
Mr. Chairman, I send out emails of proposals, and then we put them in hard copy.
That's
And we
correct.
ship them over to Shirley, and then she gets them in packets So that's how I've been doing it. If you want me to do something different, I will. But I send out emails on proposals to give you a chance to read them. Then I'll take them and put them in hard copy.
Continue
get them
the
to
process
Shirley,
the way you do
and then
it,
and then it comes up. Whenever it comes up, it comes up. I just, I don't know either. I just handle them as they come up. So.
Yeah. You have a motion?
I move that we accept as a Board of Selectmen Sewer Commissioners policy, the policy that's dated 11/25/97, issuing of permits, et cetera, from the Water Pollution Control Facility.
Motion made by Ms. Begley, second by Mr. Slavin. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All abstained? 4-1-0. All right. Are we going to
That's
see
it.
a couple
Yes.
more this week?
Yes, I'll get you some hard copies, but I've done all the emails, just review those, and I'll put those in a hard copy, give them to Shirley, and then you put them on
Same
the agenda.
process.
And
She'll
then
put
when
them in
I'll
the
just,
packets for the folks to review.
okay,
All right.
thank you.
Okay, we have the Historic Roof Restoration Project bid award. And what this actually looks like is we need to grant authorization. Oh, no, I guess we can sign or authorize Mr. Foster to sign. Is that correct, Attorney Bowen? Oh. This is for the Tremont Nail Factory Road. You wrote an email on June 5th that said the Board of Selectmen should sign, or they can authorize you to sign, and that was to the interim town administrator.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman, yes, ma'am. The town administrator just wanted to be sure he had the authority to sign if the board, in fact, was not going to sign it itself.
Does the board typically sign these?
Well, the interesting, well, or not interesting thing under the charter is that while the town administrator is given procurement powers and is given the ability to round up all the contracts, technically they should probably be signed either by the Board of Selectmen or by the town administrator pursuant to the Selectmen's authorization.
Okay. Well, I'm going to move that this board authorize the interim town administrator to sign the awarded bid on the Tremont Nail Factory roof replacement, which is being awarded to Varica Construction, who was the low bidder, in the amount of the base bid and alternate one for $197,400 and still reserve a contingency.
I have a motion made by Mrs. Winslow. Second by Mr. Slavin. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained? 5-0-0.
Next up, we have the pumpkin patch at Bessie Park. And we're getting close to that full moon, aren't we?
Good evening. I'm Phyllis Deacons from the Wareham Village Association. I was here last week, and I had sent a letter through the town administrator requesting permission to plant a pumpkin patch in Bessie Park.
Right.
And then you told the town administrator to follow up with the Wareham District, Historical District,
Right.
and for me to come back this week. So here I am.
Do we have an answer? Mr.
Yes.
Slavin.
I met with Robert Blair, who is the chairman of the Historical District Commission, and I think we have a little communication breakdown because he has not been officially notified. What they do is they have to put it on their agenda, have a meeting, which is like an open hearing, then vote on it before you get authorization. So as of last night, they have not been officially requested to bring that item forward. So it's done a couple different ways. One, the town administrator can request it, or the town administrator can basically okay it, and the Wareham Village Association can formally fill that form. I believe we were talking earlier that Anthony had the form, so we just needs to get the process into the Wareham Historical District Commission.
When is the next meeting?
They meet at some. They don't meet steady every time. They sometimes they go months between, but I'm sure they could pull a meeting together very quickly if they get the paperwork.
The original letter that I sent to the town administrator, I brought it to the town administrator.
Right.
I also put a copy into the Historical District's mailbox. And that was, I don't know, a month or more ago anyway. But then this letter appeared, or a form appeared, to get permission to use Historical District property. I forget the name of it. And so I gave that to the town administrator. I think because the town owns a property, they should probably get permission to use it.
Right.
So that's it. That's all I know.
Can I just
What,
ask?
yeah, one second. What was the deadline? We have a deadline on this. We got to
Well,
get the seeds in the
The
ground.
seeds should be planted already, so this is not a threat. I either need permission or I've got to do something else.
Right.
That's all. Yes.
Mrs. Begley?
There's a couple things.
Mrs.
First-
Begley?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a couple things. You can certainly start the seeds in pots. I mean, you know, big pots, so that you can just like sink them in if you have to. But the other thing is, I think you need to kind of go prepared, like the location in Bessie Park that you want, kind of a design.
We did
Who's
that.
going to do the work to, you know, cultivate that area? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to water it? Those kinds of things. They're going to want to know all of those things. And who's going to restore the area when you're finished? And I think it's a wonderful idea, but I haven't had a pumpkin on my front porch in 15 years because it doesn't last more than 2 nights with the kids getting to them. So what are you going to do to kind of protect the area? Those kinds of things. That would be my suggestion. And Mr. Slavin, don't you think that the historic district or commission or whoever she's going to is going to be asking those kinds of things?
Not really. What I think they're doing is to make sure that that area, which is in the historic district, will not be damaged in any way. You know, and that's really the only question, is because it is in the historic district.
But
And as long as the town signs off, it's the town's responsibility to sign off, and that's how it works. They just want to basically have their open hearing to meet the requirements that they're under and to vote for it.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to ask town council if he's got any ideas on how we could possibly clear this board and yet give sort of a final authority to the historic commission.
The town administrator can authorize the use of the property. Can he not?
Because the property is in the historic district commission has to sign off on it. It's in the charter and bylaws.
I'm just wondering if there's a way to get it so that she can clear us tonight and then go on to the historic commission on a contingent basis.
Sure.
She
If
doesn't.
you had a motion to that effect.
But I might have a solution. Why don't I just go to Plan B? It's very, very late. I appreciate, and I don't want to offend the historical district or anything. I'm not going to give up this issue. I'm going to be back here again next year. I will go to Plan B for this year. I'm going to plant it somewhere else. Okay?
Mrs.
Thank you,
Degas,
Phyllis.
That
Thank
solves the
you.
problem. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, can we find out what happened here with this?
She sent out a letter weeks ago.
I know.
We can still have a vote.
What?
Next up.
Well, I'd wanted to
We'll
speak,
look
but
into
she
it,
left.
but the timeline goes back a long way. Mr. Bowen?
I'll be real quick, Mr. Chairman. When the request came in, I drafted a license for them to be able to use the property. If you wanted to fast track it, what you could do at this point would be to authorize the town administrator to sign the license. A license, as distinguished from a lease, is revocable at will. If the approval doesn't come through from the historic folks, then authorize the town administrator to revoke the license. That way, that hurdle's cleared, and then Ms. Dekas just has to deal with the historical people, and you could probably get those Atlantic giants in the ground real soon.
Well, I think she's on to Plan B at this point, but you know, for next year, we're talking about.
Well, if we can do that.
We can still so vote. Just notify her after the fact.
I'll call her in the morning and see if it.
All right, I'll move what what Attorney Bowen said.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve the attorney's license and then have Mrs. Stevens take that historical. Made and seconded. Anything else on the question? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Abstained, 500. Mr. Burke?
118 Sandwich Road.
Hey, Miles. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
We asked you to come in this week to give us an update on where we're at on 118 Sandwich Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could just take a brief moment to explain to the folks back home and the folks tonight what a demolition fund.
Folks back home, what do you think,
Well,
we're traveling?
Hopefully they're
Are we
watching.
traveling?
Hopefully they're watching at home.
Just don't go
because
too far back in history. There's no need for that.
We won't go too far back in history. But just that a demolition fund in a building department serves many purposes, but its primary purpose is for emergencies. If we have a car go through a building, we have an unresponsive owner. If we have a building badly damaged by fire and it's looking like it might collapse, we can use those funds to order it taken down. If we have a municipal structure, secondly, that needs addressing, we may not have to wait until town meeting if we have some available funds to abate a dangerous or hazardous situation. And also, lastly, as we've seen, when we have some unresponsive owners, there's some things in the code that we can do to facilitate remediation of sites by issuing a make-safe order and following up with a border survey. It's not a fund that we go around and say we want to tear down private property, because I'm sure everyone knows private property is sacrosanct in the courts, and it's very important that we proceed properly on any kind of municipal order with regards to private property. So with that in mind, we did have Sandwich Road as a tragedy, a fire that occurred over a year and a half ago. That property had been continually cited under the state sanitary code. It was badly damaged back in January 15th of 2011, so about a year and a half ago. In February of this year, we issued a make-safe order under 780-5121. They have under that order a 45-day appeal period. That was not appealed, so currently we are touch base with the town administrator, with several of the selectmen, and most importantly with town council, and whether or not a border survey was necessary. A border survey consists of our fire chief. It consists of a town engineer or somebody that we contract to provide engineering services. In this case, we contracted with Mr. Charles Rowley, and also a disinterested party, somebody who doesn't have a vested interest in the property. And we used Mr. Brett Boussier, who's a local contractor, but has never had any relationship at all with that property or with the owners of that property. So that border survey was convened and conducted on May 30th. It was determined by the board that there was a date certain for demolition if the family didn't take corrective action. We sent those notices out certified. Those notices came back as being received by the attorney that was responsible for notifying the family. And so consequently, we contracted to have the site remediated from a standpoint where the code allows us to remove a hazardous condition, which was the open foundation. The fire department determined that the amount of wood that was stockpiled against the fence in very close proximity to an adjoining occupied residence represented a fire hazard. And also there was a large amount of garbage and debris that was open to the weather, and obviously the residence was uninhabited. So we decided to take that effective action. The gentleman from Western Truck and Trailer, Mr. Evan Weil, mobilized equipment last Thursday night. He was in the process of obtaining a dig safe permit, making sure all the utilities had been shut off to the site, which they were. It was more of a cleanup effort than a demolition, but the important thing under the code is if we were citing for an open foundation, that that foundation be removed and that the site be brought to level clean fill with inorganic fill. And that was one thing that Mr. Evan Weil said he could provide for the town. He had done a demolition on several demolitions on Main Street in the last year. The fire department was also impressed with the way he maintained the site, the way he left the site after the 2 demolitions that he did right on our Main Street were finished. So we have a lot of faith in Mr. Weil's company. He proceeded today to, well, actually yesterday, I'm sorry, he proceeded Monday morning to get the demolition permit from the building department and then begin to remediate the site. Unfortunately, obviously there was some stockpiling by the former tenant who had hoarding issues and would bring materials, whether they were building materials or materials he thought he could reuse or sell, back to the site. And one of those items were some tiles that were known to have asbestos material in them. They weren't friable, they weren't broken up, they were just kind of stocked on the side, apparently with a tarp over them. During this border survey, we took pictures, the fire department took pictures. I've spoken with both fire officials, Chief McDuffie has taken some pictures and he's going to provide them to me tomorrow. The pictures that I shared with DEP today, we did not see, as of May 30th, that pile of shingles. The remediation that took place, he stockpiled tires, he stockpiled some other barrels that would be considered somewhat hazardous waste or potentially hazardous waste. So he wouldn't take it out in the same load of clean fill because it was going to a construction remediation site in Rochester. So they wouldn't even accept that type of waste material. If it was found to be in the load, he could be severely fined. So we stopped the project temporarily today. It was suggested that he provide a licensed site professional to take some soil samples just to make sure that no contamination occurred. That's being done today by Mr. Sam Holmesy of A-Best Abatement. He's a licensed site professional in the state of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. He's been in touch with Mr. Andrew Cooney of the DEP, and currently we're awaiting the go-ahead. Mr. Cooney seemed to think that we could clean up the whole right-hand side of the site, as the tiles, as I said, were not on the building, and it wasn't a demolition that exposed this kind of material to the site, but rather there was some material. I checked with Mr. Rowley, the engineer. He did not see it or photograph it. He's emailing his pictures to DEP. I checked with Captain Dykes. He did not see any tiles, and they have multiple photographs that we're going to be looking through in the next couple of days. And I checked with Mr. Brett Boussier. He did not see any stockpile of that material on the site. So,
Miles, do you have a timeline on completion?
I would say if we stay on track,
what's the delay
within like a week.
Days?
I'm hoping that within a week this will be totally cleaned up.
Questions? Mrs. Begley?
Hi, Miles.
Hi.
So when, I think Mr. Ethier was, we've had so many meetings about this, they're kind of all running together. But I remember when Mr. Ethier was here, before this board, he discussed that there wasn't, the site had been examined for hazardous materials, and that they had identified a pile of asbestos shingles, and I don't recall him mentioning anything else.
They were under a tarp, a green tarp, that we have not been able to see in any of the photographs of the entire site. They were contained to just a stacked pile. DEP has a picture of that stack, but it goes back to January, and the site has been accessible to not only the family, that we gave an opportunity to see if there was any valuables at all that could be salvaged. And the family member today, when he got sick, he said he asked a friend to continue to work on the site, and the friend said he had spent some time there, but I don't know if any of the material was removed. We found some small samples of what would be believed to be asbestos shingle. That's when DEP says, hold it, just get a site professional with a remediation plan, have it filed with them, and they will allow us to proceed after soil samples are taken. So it may drive the cost up a little bit, but I'm confident that we can get it cleaned up and abated within the next week.
So had these shingles just remained intact, this wouldn't be as much of an issue as they've found pieces of some?
That would be correct. Or if we found the stack of them and just removed them from the site. It's not like they were on the side of a building and then through the demolition they get completely shattered and scattered. I think they're very contained to one section.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Winslow?
I have no questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Thank you,
Slavin.
Miles.
Thank you.
No questions. We went over all of it earlier today. Thank you. I went over all of it earlier today, so I'm all set.
Mr. Titlebaum.
Just one question, Mr. Burke. Is the entire site shut down while this, remediation of this specific area for the asbestos under the control of the LSP proceeds, or is the contractor still being allowed to remove non-contaminated materials that might have been piled up?
It's my understanding from the DEP and from talking to the contractor at 6 o'clock tonight, they're going to allow them to clear everything to the right of where they thought the tiles would have been.
Okay, so in other words, the
It will continue.
The primary work will continue apace, and there won't be any delay in getting the bulk of the material off of the site that we're disposing of here.
Correct. You'll
Okay.
see continuous improvement, and it's not that much more stuff that they have to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Miles.
Okay.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you for the update.
Mr. Chair, we are
And
up.
Miles, if we're thinking the next few days, right? If anything comes up that's going to be a delay, would you please email through either copy Mr. Foster and the board? We're not meeting
Sure.
on Tuesday, so you can't come back next Tuesday for an update. So would you at least send an updated email to the board, please?
Sure. Yep.
And keep Mr. Bowen
Yes.
posted as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we are up to any other town business not reasonably anticipated 48 hours prior to the posting of this meeting, and I do have an item I would like to discuss.
Okay.
Yesterday it came to my attention that a legal document that had been
Please.
apparently delivered to Town Hall for your signature, Mr. Chair, from a deposition, had been distributed on a website. I have multiple concerns about this. In that deposition, you discuss conversations that occurred in executive session, minutes that have not been released to the public as of yet. The case has not been litigated as of yet. That deposition is not yet a public record from what I understand. And I'm concerned that a document of that confidential nature, which you yourself had not even seen, somehow ended up on the internet. And I would like this board to initiate an investigation as to how that document was released. Perhaps it was an oversight and we simply need to provide some additional training. But there are a number of documents that are handled throughout Town Hall on a daily basis on every floor in the town that are highly confidential and sensitive in nature. And we need to ensure that the employees that handle those documents understand the importance and the true meaning of confidential.
I believe, and again, I haven't read it, so I'm not quite sure Mr. Bowen was there. I believe I referred to an executive session with the board.
Mr. Chairman, I read the document and I assure you there are statements in there that reference conversations that occurred in executive session.
Referring to the conversation.
That's right, but it also discusses matters that were discussed in executive session.
I would have
Which
to,
I'm not going to repeat.
I would have to read it. I haven't read the document,
Okay.
so I don't believe that I violated.
I'm not suggesting that you did.
That's what you just said.
No, what I'm saying is that
I
there.
said I referred to executive sessions, but I don't believe I discussed the executive.
Well, Mr. Chair, without me going into detail,
Well, go right ahead.
there are
I mean, it's on the
references
internet.
there are references to conversations that occurred in executive session and to comments that had been made within executive session, which were made during a deposition that should not have been made public. So the real concern, you didn't do anything wrong. My concern is that the document, which you were answering questions under oath, that is not a public record, somehow got from Town Hall to a website. And how did that occur? And if we can identify that problem, perhaps we can ensure that it doesn't happen again.
I will only say that,
Oh, thank
again,
you.
Mr. Bowen was there. I can only say that there is an investigation ongoing in the town of Wareham over the release of those documents.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, couldn't
I
hear you.
said there is an investigation ongoing in Wareham as to the release of those documents.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that's all I ask. And just so the public knows, this may be a simple oversight or somebody didn't understand, but we have to ensure that the best interests of the town are protected at all times.
I assure you that it's no oversight.
Okay, well, I'll wait for the results of the investigation, but thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I have. Mrs. Begley? Mr. Titlebaum?
No. Oh, sorry. I thought Mr. Chair would ask, but that's okay. I have.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a few things that, for future agendas, Mr. Chair, I've got a little list here.
You can just hand them over.
No, I've got notes on here.
Well,
No.
you're not going to be discussing future agenda items. If it's something
I will-
that couldn't be anticipated in 48 hours,
I was
then
making the
you-
notes as we sat here.
uh,
I just want them as a future agenda
if
item.
there are
I don't
future
want them.
agenda items, see what Mr. Slavin hands them
Right,
to me,
and that's
I
what
put
I will
them on
give
the
you.
agenda.
But just for the record, because this needs to be discussed now, did you post a meeting for June 19th?
Yes.
Yes.
Why? Aren't we just having
Because
food?
we're going to be at a volunteer dinner, and I posted a meeting.
Is that necessary, Mr. Bowen?
We have plans to be in the same place at the same time.
We're not going to vote, make a motion or vote.
Doesn't matter. We're going to be in the same place at the same time, and it could be construed. Anybody could file this plan. There's a meeting posted. Mr. Bowen, do you disagree with that?
It's. I love getting in the middle. It's not wrong to post it. It's cautious. Is it necessary? You're serving food, right? And you know, the meatballs are good or whatever. You're not going to be deliberating about town business. It's probably
If it's
not
cautious,
necessary.
if
cautious.
it's cautionary, it's at
It's
the
cautious.
discretion of the chairman.
It's cautious.
End of story.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about who's the town engineer?
Who's what?
Who is the town engineer? That's, I just want to know. And
Normally, it's your Director of Municipal Maintenance, which would be Mark Gifford. We
he's
also
not an engineer.
He's not, yes, but he's still, that's what normally goes through. The town of Wareham hires engineers for the planning board, for conservation, and for zoning to handle most of those
Again,
issues as well.
what is this within 48 hours? This is.
I'm just asking because Mr. Burke was there talking about the town, someone that was representing the town as a town engineer. And this is something that came up because as the result of a discussion, I'm still waiting for executive meeting minutes to come before this board to be approved and held or approved and released.
There are a
I've
lot
not
of
seen any for a year.
There are a lot of them.
And
Well, Mr. Chair.
But one of the most important things is that this board needs to discuss, because this is ongoing as we speak, is I would like to have a conversation with, I guess it would be Mr. Foster, about the status of the healthcare trust fund and the holiday.
Mr. Chair, if I might, if you'll indulge me,
Healthcare Trust Fund.
not the Healthcare Trust Fund, the executive session meeting minutes. I believe that back last year, you and former Chairman Mr. Cruz sat and met with Attorney Bowen and went through
Please, what was the other thing? Who's the engineer?
the engineer.
I mean, that's
Town
not
engineer.
I mean, you can just call and ask, right?
I will.
Yeah.
I thought you
That's
could
not
just
an-
answer it.
I don't know who it is. I think we used to. Go ahead, Mrs. Winston.
Well, perhaps you and I need to do the same thing and sit down and go through all the executive session meeting minutes
I have to.
so that we can release those that we can release and we can bring forward.
Understood. Understood, but that's not the question. The question is, there's minutes that we haven't approved and held.
Nothing.
Right, I have to look into this.
Okay. I have two. I have
There's tapes.
that haven't been transcribed.
none of
Okay.
them. So I'll sit with them in the morning and find out where all those tapes are.
Okay.
But there's a lot.
I have two. I have tonight's meeting, and I have one from the night we were at the school department that we didn't have the tape recorder, which I'll work on this weekend.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Any-
just one more thing, because it was kind of scribbled here. I've gotten, I don't know about anybody else, but I've received a few emails on the town website, the town email, about people having some issues with roads or signage or speed limits and that kind of thing. And I keep referring them to the road commissioners.
Right.
The road commissioners have not met for some time.
I think they met last Monday.
But the chair is Mr. Charbonneau, so
Correct.
I keep referring them to him.
Yeah, not the chief.
That's what I would do.
I think they met last week. Yeah. Okay.
And
Town
Miss-
administrator is not here. He reports that his son is graduating.
Congratulations.
And I thought that was an appropriate reason for absence. Liaison reports. You like it?
Lights on now? Am I okay?
You're okay now.
Okay. First off, Planning Board. The Planning Board would like to meet with the Board of Selectmen about transfer development rights, better known as TDRs. It's something that they'd like to sit down together to go over, because the Board of Selectmen have to be involved with this issue as well.
When do they meet?
They meet the second and fourth Mondays of the month, but what they're looking to do is possibly pick an off night when they're not doing their regular work.
How much time
This is going to take a little while,
Hour?
probably a couple hours.
Oh.
They had tentatively put out one date, which I think may be too soon for us, which was Monday, June 18th at 7 p.m.
That's their next meeting?
No, that's an off night for them.
I'm sorry?
That is an off night for them. They're
Oh,
not
so
meeting.
they're asking to do this on a Monday night?
They just suggested a Monday night as an off night, but again, it's, we have to work together to come up with a date.
Do you think it's about 2 hours?
I believe it'll be 2 hours. Could be less, depending on how frustrated it gets. That's what it is. Other good news. There is a new company coming into Wareham called My Farm Supply. They got their site plan approval on Monday, 2387 Cranberry Highway, right next to the Save On truck repair. And
Next to the what?
the Save On is a diesel truck repair right on Cranberry Highway out on the West Wareham,
Where? What's it near?
across from McCarthy's area, the industrial park.
Oh, yeah.
It's an open piece of property. They have truck trailers, et cetera, sitting in a lot of the property right now. That will be a wholesale building of 7,500 square feet, a retail store of 6,500 square feet, and 4 greenhouses. For the audience, if you can see, it's actually going to make the area quite nice and attractive for the area. Everybody can take a look. That's what we got. Across the street, the McCarthy Properties at 2384 Cranberry Highway will be putting together 2 new buildings, each one 20,000 square feet for manufacturing or wholesale. They have to go through zoning for a variance use, but there should be no problem there. And the next item is at Cranberry Plaza, which we've had some, East Wareham, where things have slowed down. The Hawthorne Group is going to put a kidney center, dialysis center, and they'll be using about 5,500 square feet there. And we should see that coming for a hearing in about 2 weeks. There was a meeting, as Angela mentioned earlier, about the Historical District Commission, the Historical Commission, and the Wareham Historical Society, which they just do every quarter. There was a question from the Historical District Commission. They have 4 members. Our paperwork says they can have anywhere, not less than 3 or not more than 7. I'm going to give the chair the description of what the members are supposed to be. I think we have an issue in how we've selected or put together the members. It specifies members from certain areas, such as a architect society, etc. So we need to clean that up as well. And I'll give you that, Steve. That's it for me for today.
Nice work, Mr. Slavin. Mr. Titlebaum?
Nothing tonight.
Except for the fact that you reporting now that you were taken off the list of minor forest.
Well, yes, I suppose that is news, is it not?
Mrs. Winslow?
Mr. Chair, I have no liaison report.
Mrs. Begley?
I have a question about capital planning. I saw their agenda and unfortunately couldn't make their meeting. I don't know if you made it, Mrs. Winslow, but they continue to discuss the public-private safety complex, and I was just wondering if there's been further discussion about that and when they're going to come before the board about this.
I do not know. They were kind enough to move their next meeting to a day that I could attend, so I will be there to attend that meeting, and hopefully I'll have an answer to that question.
Thank you. Well, it was fortunate for me that, oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair, through you, they did not meet last week. They didn't have a quorum.
Oh, gotcha.
So nothing was
Okay,
discussed.
because I saw the agenda, but I couldn't make it. Fortunately, I've already pretty much had my liaison reports with Minot Forest, the Bike Path Committee. That was very kind of them. And the Board of Health is next week. But I do have a question that was asked of me. I was told that the Council on Aging, you might know this, Mr. Holmes, since you're the liaison, the Council on Aging was going to have an unveiling of a new and improved Council on Aging as of July 2nd, and I wonder what that meant.
I'm sorry?
That's what I was told, and I'm just
What does
passing
that
it
mean,
along.
you were told
Is there? I was
new and
told.
improved?
I was told that the Council on Aging was going to have a different focus or different responsibilities. But I don't know if that was anything that's been ongoing discussion or if.
It's not something that.
Mr. Chair, I believe I can answer Mrs. Begley's question.
Oh, good.
You've been involved.
No, I know where it came from.
Oh, well, the official answer is that the town is, there are some changes being made in the Council on Aging. And at this time, there's no public plan available until Mr. Foster tells us exactly what that is. But there are changes coming to the Council on Aging.
So is there just some members of the board that will be privy to that prior to it occurring, or will the entire board be apprised of the situation?
When the information is complete, I'm sure they'll give it to us.
So some will.
I don't have all the answers, so.
I think what happened was there was a lot of concern and a lot of discussion going on. And you know what happens when people start discussing and assuming and projecting possibilities, it turns into, because I get a lot of those calls too, and it turns out that it's simply, like Mr. Holmes said, it's a matter of, as of June 30th, there's a position that's not been funded, and there's concern about certain responsibilities, and none of those decisions, as of yet, have been made.
I've had a brief discussion with Mr. Sullivan. As far as I know, they're working through the issues. I know that he met with the chair because I was there for a few minutes. Some things were discussed there, and I had to leave, so I wasn't even there for the latter half of the meeting. And when they have the answers, I'm sure they will fully apprise the board, because I'm going to ask Mr. Foster to do that.
All right. Because the Council on Aging is advisory to the Council on Aging Director. Is that correct?
Well, they have a lot of activities by law that they can do. And they can be asked to have a more active role in some of those areas, from what I understand. I'm going back to that.
Well, just as long as the public is kept informed. I mean, hopefully, it sounds to me like sometimes the public is more informed than members of this board. And that includes me.
Well, if you're just realizing that now.
Mr. Chair,
did I mention the signs last week?
Yes.
About cedar signs. I did tell you about the signs.
Yes.
Okay. I believe they'll be in by the by the end of the month. They should be here. 2 of them.
Yep.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
guys are looking at me. Did I miss something? I don't have anything on my face.